Swimming pool and spa, those constructions would not need any variances. They would meet all the current setback requirements. And we don't need, obviously there are no total side yards because there's a corner lot, but the setback from the east property line of 21 feet conforms with the required setback of 20 feet as the side on that district. Should the village even decide to adopt those new setback regulations that are being considered, this would comply with that, so it's not a question of being worried about that. The way I compute that under the new proposed or considered law, the setback would be 20.8 feet and we have 21, so it would be consistent even with that. So I would submit that the proposal is consistent with the spirit of section 116.11.1a, which talks about front yard setbacks relative to lot size. And given that fact, I would submit that the variances requested are not substantial in relation to the requirement, and that it's difficult, if not impossible, to obviate our difficulty feasibly by some other means, because number one, the lot's only about half the size of the zoning, and number two, it is a corner lot. Conceivably, there will be no increase in density. It can be replaced with a single-family dwelling. An ancillary benefit would be that we would have a code-compliant, up-to-date sanitary system. I would also note that the existing house is in a non-conforming location with respect to either rear or side yard, depending on which yard you call it, for the way the lot is currently improved. So we'd be eliminating one non-conformity and asking for another non-conformity. Now, I have a couple of things I'd like to offer up. This is a Google Earth photo of the property, which is identified, and it shows the vegetation that's in the neighborhood. It also shows the size, scale, and location of other properties that are improved immediately adjacent to it, across the street from it, and so forth. There's one nice color picture, and there are some black and whites. It's interesting because perhaps the most relevant adjoining property is the house on the opposite side of Captain's Neck Lane that also fronts on Hill Street. So when I saw that picture, I said, gee, that's interesting. So I was able to get from Squires and Holden a copy of the survey of that house. And that house has a 28.1-foot setback from Hill Street and a 24.1-foot setback from Captain's Neck Lane, which is about half of the setbacks that we're looking for. So I think it's relevant when you consider the character of the neighborhood that house is actually closer to both streets than we're seeking to develop. We also have, for the record, which I think is relevant, copies of the surveys of the two properties that adjoin the subject property. This first one I'm handing up is the lot immediately to the south. Some of you may remember this property was formerly developed with a very modest house, very large story house, swimming pool, etc., located on that lot, which you can also see from the aerial photograph that I submitted. So the fact that this is going from a 1 to a 2-story house would not be inconsistent with the immediate neighborhood. The house, as I say, the house on the opposite side of Captain's Neck Lane is also a 2-story house. I also have the survey of the property immediately to the east of 10 Captain's Neck Lane, which I got from Village Records, and that is a 1-story house. But as you can see, it enjoys a 31.7-foot side yard setback from the subject property's east line. Now, I did take a look to see if there had been any other variances in similar situations in the general neighborhood, and one that I came up with, which I think is relatively important, in fact, I would say it's very important, the house on the northwest corner of Lee Avenue and Hill Street, which is one street to the west. Some of you may remember Dr. Brown's house. That, 1994, that property received virtually the same relief that we're looking for, mainly a front yard setback of 40 feet from both streets to construct with the house that's on that lot now, so I can offer that decision up for you as well. I think that's extremely competent information. It's the property immediately, the street immediately to the west, and it's the same relief that Bill was. I don't know how many trees. It's not forming.
Captain's name. That's front porch.
Right. But back if I took the nearest point right.
Okay, so then it's not. A building?
The moment this is a plan, it was generated by the act setback.
Which is the whole house.
Degree of non-conformity. Say that. Setback.
Back lane
Sure, do that.
on there,
I can do.
then we can be clear.
Fine. I'm getting pretty. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's. Have any. Apparently that's part of the Michut family, unless you have any questions. It's been a tough one. I found out the Lakovics, apparently they're part of the Michut family, which I found out when I was talking to them. They're related to Steve McMahon and the Michuts, which I didn't know. So.
It's been sold or is it?
No, as I said, with attempt, it's been on the market, but because of the way the existing house is, nobody's interested in it as long as they know that, you know, what they can do with it now. The way it's built now, you can't locate any accessory structures on it because of where the house is. And anything that's reasonably a development would require this sort of
Do
relief.
they have a contract vendee on it?
No, I had, 2 contracts went out and neither one of them got signed, for this reason.
If it gets sold, it doesn't mean that the new owners will want this exact plan.
That's true, but this is something that we can say that they can do this, and if they want to do something else, then they'd have to come back to you. There's no question about it. But this has been a dead end. As I said, I personally worked on 2 transactions this year, and then both of them went down for the reasons I mentioned. Never went anywhere.
Because it's in the estate section, you're paying an awful lot for the lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
The house you might want,
Right, as I say, the house is a nice house, but it's kind of out
Oh,
of
yeah.
style of what's there now.
We'll build houses like that anymore.
No. I mean, I grew up in one, but that's another story.
I think the house where you live it's just been redone. On Meeting House Lane, was that the house you lived in?
No, that's right to the west of where I was.
Okay, all right.
You know, it looks like they jacked it up and put a
I
new
just
foundation.
went by there today, and I was surprised to look at it. I hadn't noticed it last time I was by.
No, it's too bad, because the guy that bought our house, that was an old carriage house in the back, and that thing's falling apart. It's too bad.
Rick, everything?
Just one question, I think I know the answer. In your cover letter filing this application, you said some compilation of prior variances would be submitted under separate cover.
Yeah, this was it.
I presume this was it tonight?
This was it, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing
No,
anything.
this was the separate cover.
Okay.
Anyone out in the audience like to hear of this application? No. Close it or adjourn it?
So all I'm going to do is show you a setback.
Unless there's something more you want, we can
No,
close
if
it.
we see this setback to the house,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do, well, we can close it for decision subject to submission of the requested survey.
Correct, that's right.
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're on camera, I just noticed we're on camera.
Yeah, he's here. Brings us down to the final case of the evening, which is number 2952, Jaccar SH2 LLC, 2 Pheasant Close South.
For the applicant, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. This is an application for redevelopment of this property located at 2 Pheasant Close South, and to enable the construction of a tennis court, as shown on the survey submitted. And the essence of this application, there are 2 or 3, I think, significant parts of it which make it somewhat different. But the essence of it is that the concept I viewed this under is the concept of the non-access spaces. It's a asking you to look at it, and that is that there's certain given when you access structures. This is and it also narrow lane sack at the end of it. So setback, accessory setback plus 10 feet in order to achieve the application previous lots pheasant in this property. Narrow. This is all. That's
address of where you located?
That's
Do I
right.
have the right? 540.
Reason for that, as I mentioned, the reason makes it one of a kind that those granted location. But the reason the numbers square also the fact Vickery 2 is entered made rest of the fact that part of the difference is the way the sun lane there there's from this in the narrow lane and what is it when I drive by there and you look at the aerial photographs, there's no other lot from this subdivision that takes access off narrow lane. And one of the things that this client would agree to do if you saw fit to be favorable on this would be to file the same sort of covenant that the other properties did, saying that they would not take access, that the lot would not take access from narrow lane. I believe that with the package I submitted, there were some aerial photographs that show the location of the improvements on some of those lots to the north, and you can readily see from those that none of the lots take access from narrow lane. It's also relevant to note, when you look at the photographs and look at the tax map, that this lot is opposite the cluster development of Cobblefield. If you consider what's across the street from this, I made a copy of the relevant portion of the Cobblefield map. The closest Cobblefield building is about 90 feet from narrow lane. I believe narrow lane is 50 feet in width, and then there'd be another the additional setback that we're looking for the tennis court from narrow lane, so there'd be quite a separation. There would be no way that the people from Cobblefield would even be able to know that the tennis court was there. And we've given some additional consideration to other locations for the court, and this is really the furthest away you can get it from any neighbor, and I think that's a relevant thing. If you look at the actual site plan that the architect prepared, you'll see the separation distance of the proposed court from the north property line, and that is about 115 feet until you get to the property to the north, and then whatever that person's setback would be. Now, on the south side, we're showing the proposed 45-foot setback, which would be a conforming setback because David's Lane is a non-access private road. And I think that I should indicate we have a letter from the title company that certifies that David's Lane is a non-access private road.
The other 5 lots that are on narrow lane, there's a berm that separates them from narrow lane also, but this lot doesn't have a berm, correct?
Yeah, this lot doesn't have that much of a berm, but what it does have in front of it is extraordinarily high hedging, and what we would be proposing to plant evergreen screening between the tennis court and the road, and also the court would be sunk in accordance with the planning board's requirements. So if you look, I think the aerial photograph really tells a good story because it shows the extent of the screening, and there is a plan that I submitted with it that shows not only the screening but also the sinking and all of that. So this would be one of the things I think you'd have to have a drone or an airplane to even know that it was there. look at the photographs, you'll also note that the property immediately to the east of this, I think, has a tennis court that's very close to this property. So right in the immediate area, there are other courts. So I say, I think that the things that make this application unique are, A, its square size shape in the subdivision, characterized by longer lots, the fact that it has 3 front yards. It obviously has enough lot area to accommodate these structures. And we're not looking for any variances for any of the other improvements that would go on this property. So I don't know if you have any other particular questions.
Well, on the application you just had, you're asking for relief from the residents.
Right.
Here you're asking for relief from a tennis court. As we all know, a tennis court is not necessary to a residence.
That's true.
I'm thinking of this in the terms of the applications that we get on the oceanfront properties on Meadow Lane. They get a tennis court in the front yard, but it's always 90 feet back or more.
That's true.
Here you're asking for 40 feet, and it's not on the ocean, it's not a waterfront property. It's going to be right next to a road, a heavily traveled road. Whether they have access to it or not, I have a hard time with this application.
Okay. I take your comment. As I say, it is a little bit different because of the shape of the lot, even though the size of the lot is comparable to the other ones. All the other lots you could see are long and narrow, so this one's unique. And I know that you're always concerned about setting a precedent. And our thought was that from the neighborhood standpoint, this would probably be better than putting it somewhere else, even if we could put it somewhere else. It's conceivable you could locate it to the south of the house, run it east and west, maybe meet the setback, but then you'd be a lot closer to the neighbor to the south. So we looked at that. I don't have anything further unless you do have any questions. Want any additional information? I didn't expect you to do anything definitive tonight on this anyway, because I knew it was a little bit out of the ordinary.
I just have a comment that would follow up to Kevin's comment. Okay, first of all, your analogy to a non-access private road doesn't wash. This isn't a private road, it's a public road. So even with the condition of no access, it would be a non-access public road.
Right, I wasn't saying it was private.
I know you were doing it by analogy,
Yes,
but
I
there's a
was.
big difference between the two. Something that's on a private road doesn't necessarily impact the community because the public doesn't have access along the street. But this impacts the community, and it's a very substantial variance. I don't know how we could grant it without setting a precedent that would open the door to the community.
I guess my only point on that is that this subdivision was designed in a certain way, and it's been recognized this subdivision was somewhat unusual. And I think that's a way, because that occurred to me as to how you could distinguish it, and I think that's one way. And that some of the reasoning that went into the other variances that were granted, even though they didn't need setback relief, they still had accessory structures in the front yard. So I think that the subdivision design, the fact of effectively getting no access from narrow lane and the shape of the lot, those are the 3 things that to me made it worth it for me to think I should bring it in here. I think it could be distinguished. I think it's a very unusual situation. This subdivision has been recognized as an unusual situation. That's about all I can say on that subject, but that was the basis of my thinking.
Anything else, Dan?
I don't know if maybe they could do some alternate layouts. This is just one layout, like you had suggested. You know, if the front yard were the Pheasant Court front yard, that's a Pheasant Court. There's very little impact from the public on Pheasant Court. Nobody ever goes down there. But well, you can have the same effect across the street.
I just,
Please, but actually, any neighbor that could get it. And that's another thing. Like,
you want to review.
I just don't know if it's a form. Lot on this property, so might have been, but maybe they realize everything,
And come back.
To, go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I think